All right, let's jump right in. Think about it. We make educated guesses constantly, right? We spot a pattern, and we just kind of know what's going to happen next. It feels like second nature, but there's actually this really powerful logic humming away under the surface. And today, we're going to break down exactly how that works, and more importantly, where it can sometimes lead us astray. Okay, picture this. Every single morning for the past 2 weeks, you've walked by the same house and you've seen the same gray cat sitting on the porch every single day. So when you walk by tomorrow, what are you expecting to see? Yeah, the cat, obviously. You're not 100% sure it'll be there, but you'd put money on it, wouldn't you? Well, that simple, totally common sense prediction you just made, believe it or not, it actually has a formal name. You just performed a perfect little piece of inductive reasoning. You took a bunch of specific things you saw and used them to make a general prediction. And that's where we're going to start. We're going to unpack this whole idea because, seriously, whether you realize it or not, this is like a logical superpower you're using constantly. So let's get the official definition down. Induction is basically reasoning from specific observations, like seeing that cat every day, to a general conclusion. You see something happen over and over, that's your evidence. And from that, you build a bigger idea. But notice that super important word, probably. Induction is all about likelihoods. It's never about absolute guarantees. Okay, and this is a really, really important point. Induction has a kind of logical twin called deduction, but they are totally different beasts. And it all boils down to one simple idea: certainty versus probability. And the difference is huge. Deduction, that's airtight. It's like a math problem. If all men are mortal and Socrates is a man, then Socrates must be mortal. See? It's a guarantee. But induction, that's our best guess. It's the kind of logic that drives science and, well, pretty much our entire daily lives. The conclusions can be super strong, but they're never, ever 100% lock. Now, the specific flavor of induction we're really digging into today is something called an inductive generalization. This is where you look at a small piece of something, we call that a sample, and you make a big conclusion about the whole thing, the population. You know, it's like asking your 5 best friends if they liked a movie to figure out if everyone at school will like it. But here's the thing, not all guesses are good guesses, right? Some are pretty solid, and others are just, shots in the dark. So how do you tell the difference? How can you tell if an inductive argument is strong or weak? Well, let's build ourselves a little toolkit. So there are basically 3 big things you need to look for. First up, sample size. Is it big enough? I mean, asking 500 people is always going to give you a better picture than asking just 5. Makes sense, right? Second, is your sample representative? Does it actually look like the bigger group you're talking about? If you want to know what the whole city thinks, you can't just ask the people at one coffee shop. And finally, number 3, diversity. Did you see this pattern happen in a bunch of different situations or just one specific one? Let's look at a really obvious weak one. So I ask my 2 best friends if they like broccoli. They both go, ugh, no. And so I run around yelling, kids hate broccoli. See how terrible that is? The sample size is just 2 people. It's not representative of anyone but my friends, and the conclusion is just way, way too big for the evidence. That, my friends, is a classic weak induction. Okay, now let's flip it and look at a strong one. Imagine a huge survey. They ask 10,000 students from 200 different schools all across the country what their favorite lunch is. And the conclusion they come to is most middle schoolers probably prefer pizza. Now this one checks all the boxes. Huge sample size? Yep. Representative? For sure. And notice how the conclusion is nice and modest. And that right there is maybe the most important part of all of this. A really smart thinker understands that even the strongest, most well-supported inductive argument is still not a certainty. That's why they use careful words like most and probably. It's a way of admitting, hey, there's always a tiny chance the next person we ask will be different. You know, this idea leads us to this amazing story from history. It's about a pattern that seemed absolutely perfect, a pattern that held true for thousands of years until suddenly it just broke. This is the famous black swan problem. So I want you to imagine you're living in Europe back in the 1600s. Every single swan you have ever laid eyes on is white. Not just you, but your parents and their parents before them. Every painting you've seen, every story you've heard, it's all about white swans. The evidence is just overwhelming. It's a perfect, unbroken pattern. So what's the conclusion?
It seems totally obvious, right? It feels like a law of nature, based on literally centuries of observation without a single counterexample. You state it as a fact. All swans are white. I mean, it doesn't get much more certain than that, does it? This is about as strong as an inductive argument can possibly be.
And for everyone in Europe, it was a fact. Until explorers sailed to Australia. And what did they find there? Something that completely blew everyone's minds and shattered centuries of belief. They found swans that were black. One single new observation, and poof, the perfect generalization was gone. This moment was so huge, it actually gave us a new phrase we still use today, a black swan event. It's any event that comes completely out of left field, has a massive impact, and serves as this powerful reminder that no matter how certain you are, no matter how good your evidence is, the unexpected can always be just around the corner.
So, the black swan problem is a great real-world example, but it also points to a much deeper and honestly kind of mind-bending philosophical problem. A challenge that questions the very foundation of how we think we know anything at all.
Yeah. This brings us to the philosopher David Hume, who way back in the 18th century asked this incredibly simple but powerful question. Think about it. Why do you believe the sun will rise tomorrow? Well, because it always has, right? But Hume's question was, what is our actual logical reason for believing that the future has to be like the past?
And here's the brain twister. If your answer is, well, I trust patterns to continue because in my past experience, patterns have always continued. Do you see the problem? You're using past experience to justify your faith in past experience. It's a loop. It's circular reasoning. Hume's brilliant point was that we have no rock-solid, logical proof that the universe has to keep playing by the same rules. We just have a really, really strong habit of assuming it will.
Now, does this mean we should all just throw our hands up and stop trying to predict anything? Of course not. We couldn't function. Science would stop. You couldn't even safely cross the street without it. But what Hume's problem does is give us a huge dose of humility. It's a reminder that even our most deeply held beliefs, our best generalizations, are still just that, our best guesses. And they have to stay open to being revised by new evidence. And that's the thought I really want to leave you with today. Just take a second and think about your own life. Can you remember a time when you made a big generalization based on just one or two experiences, about a certain kind of food, a band, maybe even a group of people, and then you had a totally new experience, your own little black swan, that just completely proved you wrong? It happens to all of us, and it's a really powerful lesson in keeping an open mind.